The arrest of a truck driver after a fatal crash in Southern California is sparking new debate over illegal immigration.
On Thursday, authorities arrested a 21-year-old man in connection with the crash that killed 3 people and injured 4 others. He faces 3 counts of vehicular manslaughter while intoxicated and driving under the influence. According to the Department of Homeland Security, the man did possess a valid California license, but was living in the U.S. illegally. DHS writes on X, ICE lodged an arrest detainer for Jashan Preet Singh, a criminal illegal alien from India who took the lives of 3 individuals in a horrific DUI accident in San Bernardino County, California. Singh first entered the U.S. in 2022 through the southern border and was released into the country under the Biden administration.
Now, this comes after the U.S. Transportation Department recently put in place new rules that greatly restrict the ability of non-citizens to obtain commercial driver's licenses. Transportation Secretary Duffy has already accused the state of California of not following those rules.
California was given 30 days to comply with the order or risk losing federal funding. Now, in light of this week's crash, Duffy writes on X, unacceptable. Lives have been lost over California's failure to enforce my new rules for obtaining licenses to operate trucks. California Governor Gavin Newsom must put politics aside and enforce these common sense rules to prevent any more tragic deaths on American roads.
Now, Governor Newsom did provide a response accusing the Trump administration of politicizing the tragedy. In a statement to Fox News, Newsom says, quote, "This is a tragic situation. And as with every tragedy over the last 10 months, Secretary Newsom has ordered Secretary Duffy to look for every opportunity to manipulate the facts to score cheap political points. But the federal government needs to look within before they cast blame outside." The federal government approved and renewed this individual's federal employment authorization multiple times, which allowed him to obtain a commercial driver's license in accordance with federal law.
All right, so this is actually the 3rd high-profile incident that we've had in a matter of months involving illegal immigrants driving big rigs and killing people. The first one was in Florida, where an individual who had failed his commercial driver's license test 10 times in 2 months ended up receiving his license in 2023 in Washington, was able to earn a second CDL in California, apparently could not speak English, had failed an English language test. He was pulled over in New Mexico a month prior to the crash and could not really communicate with the officers, yet went on to make an illegal U-turn, which killed a family. Later on, October 15th in Indiana, a man who was a legal visa overstayed his visa in 2011, killed a man while driving with a suspended CDL from a family member that was obtained in Illinois, and then now this case in California. The guidance that Duffy had issued in, I believe it was in September, which prohibited illegal immigrants from possessing CDLs, also required states to revoke CDLs from illegal immigrants, not just not issue new ones, but actually take away the ones that had previously been granted. Gavin Newsom failed to do that. Now we have 3 more people dead.
Yeah, I think Gavin Newsom's response right here was not the right one. I do think that it's important to point out when a tragedy strikes, and I think that most of America's on board with the same message that if you do any criminal acts, and that could be any step of the way, right? So this is a terrible, horrific tragedy. Hopefully that's not the act that you commit that gets you thrown out of the country, but most migrants that do anything, like even driving without the proper license, you said one of them was using their family member's license, right. Not appropriate, right? I think, and he had multiple incidents. I read in 2018, that same guy had an incident for resisting arrest in Long Island prior to that. Yep. So if you are a migrant that's coming here for a better life or what have you, you cannot be here also breaking the law. I think most Americans agree on that and just don't agree with some of the other policies that are getting tied and roped into this about how the Trump administration is handling migrants in the U.S. and how people who have lived here for years, or when we watch video from Chicago of parents dropping their kids off at school and then ICE is putting them under arrest outside of the school or within reason of, where their child might see. I think that those are the incidents people are talking about when farm workers are scared to go to work into factories. But Gavin Newsom should just condemn this and say this is exactly what it is and separate this from the majority of migrants that come here, both illegal and legally, that commit less crime than American-born citizens. And we understand that fact. Obviously, there are way more American citizens, but I'm just saying, like, majority of migrants that come here are not criminals. And I think we have to make sure that we're differentiating and not, and President Trump's jargon is constantly reminding people, especially on the campaign trail, that they're drug dealers, murderers. And it's like, that's not all migrants. There are workers here. There are people who lived here for 20 years trying to build families that are contributing to the growth of our country and our nation. I think we have to remember that the majority are not doing bad things. But this incident was bad and should be condemned as such and should not be blamed back and forth on Biden or Trump. I think it's the wrong moment to try to figure out who to blame and just try to figure out how to avoid this ever happening again. And I don't know if that's throwing everybody out, because multiple people agree that there are multiple ways to handle migration, but certainly we can agree that Joe Biden was not handling it properly, which is why most of the country turned on him on that issue.
Yeah, well, look, Gavin Newsom needs to accept responsibility here, because there was a policy in place that would have prevented this, which was revoking those CDLs, and he chose not to do that. He chose to fight the Trump administration because he wants to run for president in 2028, and apparently was willing to gamble on another one of these incidents happening with one of his drivers in California with a commercial driver's license, who is not supposed to be in the country, being able to continue driving that truck with a valid license. So, I mean, he owns this, really. I would also just point out, in response to the claim about crime rates among legal and illegal immigrants versus American citizens, there is only one study that makes that claim, because Texas is the only state that actually tracks arrest of illegal immigrants. And it turned out that when a further review was done of that study by the Center for Immigration Studies, they found that there was a significant undercounting problem, because not all people who are arrested are identified as illegal at the time of their arrest. Some of them are identified later in the jail system. And when they accounted for that difference, they found that actually violent crime rates were higher among legal immigrant populations, and that the overall crime rate was fairly consistent with American citizens. But I think most people hear that anyway and say, well, we don't care, because the difference is that those people should never be here to commit crime in the first place, right? That's an entirely preventable situation.
And I think that's the biggest divide on immigration in this country, whether you think that all illegal migrants should be completely removed, or whether you think that anybody committing criminal acts should be removed. And we've seen a lot of polling, and the numbers stay around the same area on this, is that a majority of the country does agree that President Trump is handling immigration well and doing something about it, as opposed to what Biden was doing, which was a failing issue for the Democratic Party, being way too soft on immigration. But I think that now a lot of people are uncomfortable with some of the tactics, and we've seen them play out in several cities across the country, and some of the ways that ICE is going about it, and it's caused friction. But I think there needs to be a real solution about how to appease. Like, realistically, I don't know if it's possible to get every single migrant out of the country. I know we can try that. We can have Tom Homan talk tough on television, but I think it's really important to be realistic about what actually is helping our economy, how a variety of Americans actually feel about migration, how many of these business people that are yelling from the rooftops, "Go Trump," actually employ illegal migrants. You talked about this with the farm workers earlier, like people who, even President Trump himself, when he was building Trump Towers, used migrants that were, some of them were illegal. And so that is part of the problem. It's like these business owners that also cozy up to the president. You're asking for two things at once: to get rid of everybody, but then also, wait, we keep some people that are benefiting our society and bringing the smartest and brightest over here to benefit in high level jobs, or even those low wage workers that actually are helping build and do some of the jobs that Americans just weren't going after. Some of these things are actually relevant to making the best America that we can.
What's amazing is that after 10 months of the Trump administration being really aggressive on these crackdowns and these deportations, most polls still show a majority of Americans support mass deportation. And I think it's for exactly the reasons that you mentioned, because they recognize that corporations are able to get around these rules by employing under-the-table workers that are driving down their wages. They see that the elite people in our society use illegal immigrant labor as a way to enrich themselves while leaving the American worker behind.
Yeah, we're going to keep talking about this, definitely. So up next, President Trump has demolished the entire East Wing, and many Democrats are not happy about it. Stay with us.